So the Heat couldn't take a 2-1 lead against the Celtics. They couldn't win at home. They couldn't crack 90 points again in the playoffs. And it just felt like a repeat of the game one. They couldn't hit shots. They couldn't generate any kind of looks. And given the Celtics' defensive adjustments and how they upped up the intensity, this was a bigger struggle than before. Because in game one, a lot of it came down to just missing open looks that they made in game two. In game three, the Celtics really adjusted by forcing the Heat to try to beat them off dribble and force them into making a lot more mid-range shots. And they just couldn't do it. The drives were there, but no one could put their defense in rotations. The threes that they got into game two weren't there. There were no reads for Tyler Hero to make. There were no kickouts. And even when the Heat did make those reads, the Celtics just closed out way harder. And that completely stole the Heat's offense. Because defensively, that looked as good as you could get against this kind of Celtics team. The Celtics struggled shooting from the three. They shot 11 for 37. That's 30%. And that's what you'd need to have a chance against the Celtics. And that's what they did. They slowed down the offense again. They made them to have a stagnant offense, forcing them into a lot of isolations, a lot of ball sticking, a lot of tough shot making. Tatum finished with 22 points on 16 shots. That's what you'd want. The offensive was the whole issue again. And that's what happened in the first half, where they were down 24 because they only put up 39 points in two quarters. So let's just go through a whole bunch of things, because the Celtics did make adjustments. There was a reason why the Heat struggled even more, going beyond just missing open looks. And we'll see where the adjustments were made and a whole bunch of things that just stood out from this game. So the first thing to talk about, it's their three-point shooting when it comes to both volume and accuracy. They did shot 32%, which is an issue. The Heat need to make threes. There is no other way about going up with the offense when they have to make threes. Whether it's low volume, high volume, if they're not making threes, their offense will most likely be what we've seen so far. So that's just making shots. But the bigger issue in this game was with their three-point volume. In game two, they attempted 57% of their shots from three. That dropped to 36%. And we'll go through how the Celtics adjusted. But when it comes to how they got the looks in game two, they only had those looks 8 of the shots counted. 5 of the shots from the 3-point in game 3 came as a result of the hero pick and rolls that drew the defense and that opened up the kickouts. That 5 was probably tripled in game 2, and that was a big issue with them with the Heat offense in game 3, because they just have no other ways of generating points outside of the 3-point shooting. And if they didn't have the looks, they settled for the mid-range shots. In the first half, they had more shots around the mid-range than they did in the 3. That didn't happen in game 2. So you can see they only had with the hero pick and rolls, with him making reads, it was very limited. These kind of looks for shooters where you can see Drew helping open up Jovic, that only happened a few times. These staggers for Hero getting open looks, he was making them in game 2, he didn't make them in game 3. This was a new thing, with Bam drawing defenses in the paint up for shooters. This is a new thing, and that's encouraging to see, with Bam drawing that kind of attention, opening up shots. And this is where just the accuracy point stands out, where the Jaime and everyone else just have to make shots. Same here with Hero. Those are the looks they made in game 2, just didn't in game 3. Same thing here. He sees the help, Jovic gets the 3, just couldn't make it. And same thing here, just drawing the defense, finds Caleb. The only issue was with the 3-point volume. The Celtics adjusted by not sending that much help on Hero, on Bam, and there are no other ways to go about it. If the Celtics are not sending that much help, he have to find ways to generate that kind of attention, and they just couldn't. And that was the biggest issue when it comes to the 3-point shots. So let's just go through some of the other adjustments the Celtics made and what it opened up instead. So there are two things that the Celtics did defensively that was different in game 3 versus game 2. The first one is very simple, and it's that meme where with the guy just leaning it forward with his controller, just taking the game more seriously. That's how it felt with how they pressured more, they defended the closeouts better. Everything just felt harder against the Celtics in game 3. There was no room in the pick and rolls. I mentioned in game 2 when Hero was picking on Tatum to be a screen navigator, that wasn't an issue at all from Tatum. He was just hustling hard, trying to recover. He wasn't doing that in game 2, and that felt like a effort thing from everyone else on the Celtics. Everyone was ready to close out. Everyone was ready to help and then recover. All of the time the Heat had to go for those shots, that disappeared. I always go back to one of them, Bob Myers talks about the playoffs and how it's more different with the defensive intensity. That's what it felt like, where every option that the Heat wanted to have, that was gone. All their first options, that was gone, because the Celtics just stepped up defensively and took away the first action, first step, first move that they wanted to take. They took it away with high effort and high intensity. So that was the first thing. The second thing was a key defensive adjustment on how they treated everyone else, how they treated the shooters, how they treated the ball handlers. I had no idea. I tweeted it out where I had no idea why the Celtics took that approach in the first place, why they wanted to play the high variance 3-point game, even though they were letting the right shooters shoot. It's just a bad strategy, especially for a team that doesn't have anything else. This isn't a team with Jimmy Butler who could do something else with rim pressure, getting to the rim, getting fouls, doing something else than just shooting threes. Against a team that is lacking a creator, lacking the ball handlers, there is no reason to just give those shots in the first place. And that's, I think, been a strategy for the Celtics in the regular season, where they forced Tyler just doing his own thing in the mid-range. They let Bam cook. They didn't allow those 3-point shots, and they just kept them in check doing that way. So that was a bit confusing why they opted in for that strategy for the game 1 and 2. And then they just went back to game 3 doing that thing where they forced a lot of mid-range shots. They had over 40 shots in the mid-range, and that's the right strategy. That's what we saw Denver do. Denver had the same thing where they lost one of the games because of the 3-point shooting. And then once they adjusted, they run them off the line, they forced them into mid-range shots. They couldn't generate any offense. So that's what the Celtics did. So let's just go through some of those actions, those pick and rolls, and how the defense just treated them differently. It was a Jovic Bam pick and roll. You can see no one's helping off. Before, Drew was probably up here just stunting on the drive. There was no kick out. There was no kick to Caleb or Hero. Same thing here. In game 2, White was already here. He was preventing that drive to happen in the first place. That even happened in game 1, in game 2, with Jovic in the corner. Jaime just doesn't get that shot now, and is forcing Hero to create off the dribble. Same thing here. No one's helping off. Everyone else is just stuck to the shooters, and you're forcing Hero to beat you with floaters and mid-range shots. This was a really good adjustment when it comes to the intensity of how they close out on shooters. Duncan pops after the ghost screen. Drew's already there. He's not letting him go at all. And then same thing with Horford. He's sticking with Hero. He's not letting him go get open at all. Drew switches. That's another thing. Their switches just killed him as well. There is no one here open. There is nothing for Hero to do outside of trying to beat Drew off the dribble. The whole intensity with Drew and others guarding the ball handlers was just great. Now it's Caleb. Now he's forcing Caleb to be a creator. No one's helping off. They're denying those shooters, and it's putting your trust in Caleb-led offense instead of playing a high variance 3-point shooting game. Because this was the part where I was talking about Tatum's screen navigation. Gets Tatum on the switch, and he fights for like hell. He's not letting him get that space, and now it's again Hero on the shots off the on floaters. Here was another good example of the pressure that Hero was seeing and the kind of closeouts the shooters were seeing. And then finally, these were the possessions you also see. No one helps off. Drew recovers but quickly back to Jovic. White recovers back. Brown is face guarding Hero. And that was essentially game on offense for the Heat. With the defense just stepping up, forcing the ball handler with more pressure. The Heat don't have ball handlers like this, where they can beat guys off the dribble. And then when there are no kickouts, you have no other choice but to try to cook in isolation, try to cook off the dribble in contested mid-range shots. And with this adjustment, it's hard to see what the Heat could do next, because they don't have a Jimmy Butler to have a counter for that. They don't even have a Terry Rozier, who would have been the best ball handler on this team. They don't even have that as a safety net. And now the Heat are just running out of options. So it will be interesting to see the adjustments made to have any kind of spark. Because the only way to do that is putting up threes, putting up high volume of threes. Because outside of that, there is not much else that he could do. But speaking of adjustments, I think that does start with Bam. With the Celtics adjusting to pressure the ball handler, fighting over screens more, closing out on shooters, not giving that space to shooters on the closeouts. It all starts, I think, with Bam, because he's the only one that has been able to draw some extra attention in the post and in isolations. It's been rare. They have opted into treating him in single coverage, and for me, it has been a bit too much of Bam in isolations, particularly when he does settle for those mid-range shots, especially in games 1 and 2. Even though he was making them, they still treated him just 1v1, and he was just cooking in the mid-range. But that's playing into the Celtics' hands. They want you to put up more mid-range shots, more contested shots, and that's just going to be a bad offense. Even though he's making them, he could make them at 50-55%, and that still won't be good enough for an efficient offense in 2024. But in Game 3, he has seen a bit more coverage where it has opened up shooters. There are ways to get him against mismatches where he can draw that defense inside the paint to open up the shooters or open up any kind of other movement. But these possessions like these, where it's him attacking Kristaps, him going for those mid-range shots, that kind of needs to go away. This is not going to help the Heat entirely, unless he just continues to beat them off the dribble, get to the line, draw fouls, and force them to adapt. These kind of shots against Horford, where he just goes to the paint, goes for that fade, that won't help in a big picture thing for the Heat. They were good in Game 2, where it's not relying on that kind of offense. It's where it was the Heat putting up great offensive numbers with their three-point shooting, plus now you have Bam as a safety net with those shots. But when the offense is relying on those shots as the main diet, that's when it becomes an issue. But we also seen the Celtics adjust, and you can see some of the help he was seeing here. He attacks Kristaps, gets deeper into the paint, and you have Tatum playing off Caleb. He's already in the paint, makes that kick, but now this is where they just have to continue to make those shots. Similar thing here. Here. I think the better way is to have Bam screen for others, force him then to switch, force to have him get guarded by White or Brown, because then you have these kind of possessions. He looks to seal him, defense collapses from both ends, he draws two players, opens up Hero for free. Similar thing here. Beats Kristaps off the dribble. That's what he needs to be doing more of. Draws White to help. Open kick for Jaime. And Bam also needs to be better. Here, he attacks Kristaps off the dribble. Tatum's already in the paint. Gives him a fake. Wide open. And he's going to go out for a shot instead. He pump fakes a couple times, sees that Tatum was inside, and he still goes up for the shot instead of making that kick. Those kickouts needs to happen. He can't just be settling in those for those looks. You can't have 10, 15 shots of those mid-range shots. Because even if you make half of them, that's still a win for the defense. But that is the only, I think, adjustment that I can see with the Heat to have a better offense than what they did in Game 3. Defensively, I didn't see much difference. I didn't see anything else that could be more exploited by the Celtics, and it was as good of a result as you could get, with the Celtics not hitting everything, not being hot from three, still limiting them of how they get those threes, how they get those shots up. A lot of the shots were like these, with isolation, not much movement, settling for tough shots. Those are the kind of looks you want as a defense. You're not putting rotations. You're not giving up shots at the rim. The threes or all off dribble. There are when it comes to defending those kind of offenses like the Celtics, where they're historic, where they can just run you out of the gym with their 3-point shooting. Those are exactly the kind of looks you want to give up, and that's all good defense. They stuck with their switching. They stuck with them not overhelping, not sending doubles, and it has worked for them. So I don't see an issue on that end, and that's what makes it a bit frustrating, because the defense does work. It does exactly what you'd want, except that you just get shots like these, where it's tough contested pull-ups, where you just live with those kind of shots. And some of them, the only other issue is with the switching, is the Brown Hero matchup. That's been an issue all series wrong so far, where he's been eating. Where anytime he has that matchup, he gets to the rim with ease. Those are the looks you can't give up. So I wonder if they adjust their matchups, they take Hero out of Brown to not give up those kind of looks, because those paint shots, those rim shots, were exactly why the Celtics were in the game in the first place in Game 2. You just can't give up those kind of looks. Hero just needs to be better when it comes to defending Brown 1v1. You just can't give up those easy drives, easy blow-bys to the rim, because then you're forcing the Heat to adjust by sending that much help. Then that opens up the 3-point line on the kicks, and now you're putting yourself in defensive rotations, and now we're back to Game 1, and the Celtics can blow you out the game easily. So I wonder how that defensive matchup will go. Outside of that, everything on defense just needs to remain how it is. Bam needs to be great. Everyone else needs to just hold their own and contest well, close out well, help, and everything just starts with on offense when it comes to the Heat. Now, before we go, I do want to highlight Nikola Jovic on defense, because he's been standing out all season long with his defense. His defensive improvements has been much bigger than whatever he's been doing on offense, and that's a big sign of going forward with him, because that was his biggest question, that was his biggest issue. Could he be playable on defense? And he's showing in playoffs against a good team, against players that should have been a problem for him, and he's helping. He's defended well in 1v1 drives, in isolations, great as a rim protector as well. His improvement here, the way he's shown so far on defense has been so good. You can see here, it starts with a switch on Tatum, defends his drive well, contests the shot at the rim. Here it was a good rotation on Tatum's drive, the tears the shots. Here now is a weak side help, is a mismatch inside, comes to help, blocks the shot. Same thing here, stunts, deflects the ball, comes back and contests the shots. His IQ as a defender also has been huge, knowing when to pick those places to be, knowing when to rotate, how to help, how strong to help. Here defends Brown in isolations, contests the shot well, doesn't give up a drive. That gives you more flexibility, this was just IQ, knowing when and how to help, knowing when to close out, when to deny, shows help, shows aggressive. Now gets deflection, gets the steal as well. Another here, low man rotation. He's been good with this. It's a drive, knows when to help, contest. Jovic has just been so good defensively, and that gives them flexibility, gives them ways, another big body that could be used as a help defender, rim protector on the weak side. You You can switch with him. You're not going to be killed on switches, whether it's Staten, whether it's Brown. And he's just high IQ defender now as well. Those are big pluses for the Heat and for Jovic, especially in this series, because these were his biggest questions, and he's answering them easily. And given what he's been doing on offense, he's been one of the best players in this series so far for the Heat. But that is all for the Game 3 breakdown. We do have a game today, and the plan, the blueprint for the Heat to win is still the same thing. It's now is to have an adjustment to the Celtics adjustment, with them not overhelping, not giving those 3-point looks, because I don't see the Celtics adjusting back to how they were playing in Game 1 and 2. The Heat will have to force the defense to adjust again. And one way is to go through Bam's touches, through Bam's post-ups, isolations, have him beat Kristaps, beat Horford off the dribble. Because I don't see a hero pick and roll anymore attracting that much help to open up the shooters. And the more important thing is, as well, with the shooting, they just need to make shots. If the Heat don't hit at least 10 threes, if they don't hit 38 to 40%, their chances are almost zero to me, because there are no other ways of getting offense. And unless they shoot 60% from the mid-range, also getting to the rim somehow, there is no way of offsetting that 3-point shooting deficiency. So they need to make shots, and even then, it's going to be a struggle on how they can adjust to put up those shots. Because 36% of their shots being threes won't cut it. They need to be closer to 45 to 50 even, and now it's going to be a struggle to put up those 45 points from the three. So it will be interesting to see how they will adjust, and hopefully they will bounce back and tie the series 2-2.